think it's fascinating for people in general to see that someone on your level still grapples with these things, and that maybe what someone at the beginning of the journey might think is the end goal is not necessarily the end goal, right? So do you want to talk a little bit more about what made you ask such a dark and mood-killing question in the
Yeah,
chat?
yeah. Thanks, Ahmed. I have a theory I want to say afterwards, but I want to hear Ahmed out on this question.
Honestly, it's something I asked myself yesterday when I was like trying to figure out a personal problem.
Mm-hmm.
And as usual, I'm charting things out with like stick figures and circles and stuff, and I write things on a PSD. But I don't know. I'm just like, my whole life, I feel like I've been using art as a currency to feel valid.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, coming from a place where my existence within society or group or family or community depended on putting forth some kind of currency or compensation. Like, what do you do? Well, I do this. Am I valid now? And so, trying to become self-aware of that, and then stepping outside of it, and then asking, okay, if not for that, what other possibility could there be for creating art? And it's so foreign to me. It's such a weird idea to think that you would do art for anything else. And so I asked the question. I was gonna like try to tackle it on my own today, but then I'm like, hey, why don't I bounce it off of these two geniuses and see what happens?
So I have a theory about this, which is two things, which is I think as artists we have this tendency to view this as needing to be something entirely pure, but just like written language, art is a form of communication. And if you've ever been in a conversation where only one person is talking or nobody's listening, it's a pretty shitty conversation.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there's anything wrong about wanting engagement with the artwork, because like, why would you communicate with people if they're not communicating back in some fashion? I do think you're right in that it can, especially with social media, it's easy to create that that sort of like self-fulfilling thing where so you're just drawing for the social media engagement. So yeah, you do want to take a step back at times from that, but I don't know. I think, especially coming from music, the point was always to create a connection with other people. It was always like I would write music that I loved and wanted to listen to, but the really fun part was going to the show and like vibing with everybody and engaging together. And then the last point I want to make was just, about social status and hierarchy and that sort of thing. I mean, that's a inclination that's as old as humans themselves. Like, of course you're going to have some sort of inclination towards achieving status as by doing the thing that you do. It's like, that's hardwired into literally every mammalian species. So I can't see how you could entirely divorce yourself from that.
Right on.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's my 2 cents. It could be very wrong, but
Yeah, I think to extrapolate, for example, of the music. By the way, you're amazing at guitar.
oh, thank you.
Seen your jam.
Yeah, this is also good because you both play guitar. You both have the secondary creative outlet, or not to put them in an order or anything, but you know what I mean.
And
always interesting, the cross learning there.
What's interesting is I have a lot of fun just sitting and playing guitar, and not like zero people could be listening, and I'm generally finding joy with that. So you could make the argument that that is a more pure joy. I don't know inherently, but even then, like if I'm playing music and there's nobody listening, that's fun. But if I have a second person to play with, then it's even more fun because now it's a communication. And it's almost like the more people I add into it, there's like a direct relationship to how much fun I'm having.
Right. And I think here's where I guess my question comes in. In that same scenario, when you're playing and you're enjoying, and if there's a second entity with you, or an audience, or you're playing a gig, it's sharing it as a conversation. However, if you're playing guitar, to you is your attempt to desperately feel seen and validated, then I think it contaminates the process, or just the creative expression, because it's not about creative expression. but rather, please tell me I'm valid. I am so desperate. I'm a lost puppy. I need you to see how good I can do this solo. Did you see it? Please tell me it's good.
Yeah,
And
that is
comes from
100% there.
Oh, it is okay. I guess for me that's I want to take that out of the equation, because it's like I've got all the evidence that I'm a valid person, all this stuff, and despite never experiencing anything like unconditional love, it's like I think I need to open the possibility of feeling that for once, instead of thinking I have to earn it through proving how good my solo is or my drawing.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in real quick and say that that's bullshit, because I have unconditional love for you, and I try to communicate it to you with my eyes. Time I look at you,
that's
and you
true.
just refuse to accept it. So that's definitely completely off base. But in all seriousness, there's a deep part of me that Aaron, there's a deep part of me that feels like, okay, I'm gonna take a meta view on this a little bit, because I do really believe that whatever the answer is to this issue for you, which you've been grappling with for a long time, right? And we've all, as an art community, we've all taken a lot of good lessons from hearing you grapple with this as well. I do think that the answer it's so deep that the answer will ultimately be super personally for you. You know, it's going to be something that is so tied to your particular personal conditions that it's probably going to be like utterly unexpected and just totally special just for you. So I have a hard time believing that there's any answer anyone else could hand to Ahmed that would really help him with this. And I think that you especially are the kind of person who benefits the most from parsing these things internally, you know?
Sure.
I might be wrong about that, but you have so much natural interest in turning these things over for yourself that it really seems that that is like the deepest furrow for you, and that's where lessons really stick with you. So I do think it'll be very personal, but on the meta level, I do think it's an interesting lesson for example, everyone who's in the chat, that like the way you're talking about this and saying that it goes back so far, you have had an incredible art journey and gained great skill and, like you said, great validation, even though all of that has been running as a parallel process as you did all of this, right? So I'm also interested in the way that you are reacting to it, where you're saying something like you want to get rid of it or something like that. I think it might also be important to note that it may not be to get rid of it. Maybe it's just to slightly put it in its proper place.
And I was gonna say, I wanted to say this as well, which is like, just as we were talking about earlier, with profiting off your art doesn't need to be mutually exclusive from making art that you are passionate about. I think you could find something similar here as well. And I get the urge to want to completely expunge something from your thought process, but it's that thought process that's gotten you here in the first place. And so you're almost asking to separate a part of your being that is literally the thing that may have propelled you to this position in the first place. And I get the compulsion, because I come from, pretty fucking crazy family with, the only way to get validation was, you had to be a doctor and a musician and and good at everything sort of shit. So like, I get the compulsion to be like, why am I doing this? Like, because for me, I ask myself the same question: is, am I doing this because it's some sort of weird self-soothing type of situation? But
right on. And to kind of jump back real quick to what Stephen was saying, putting it in its place, I think that's probably the healthiest way to look at it. And last night I was imagining, like I did the little acting out earlier of like, I need you to see that I'm good. Please tell me, like, look at this value study that I did. Isn't it good enough? Please. Right. So that's a legitimate person within. Right. And so I imagined that person was at the steering wheel, and there's the other part of me that's like just being. And it's like I've let the other one take the steering wheel for so long that I need to be like, okay, well, you can still stay, but you got to take the back seat for a bit. I just want to make art, dude, you know?
Yeah, I think inevitably that has to be the realistic path, right? And hopefully in its proper place, the majority of what it presents into experience and to consciousness will be the benefits of that, sort of the desire to this is something I've been interested in a while, actually. It's funny that comes up, but like the part of that sort of we interpret it as like preening, right? As like, please think this is good, please think this is great. It's weird that we have that construct, because there is also a positive way to look at that, which is that you have a desire for the audience to be delighted by what you made, right? Maybe this version of it is sort of twisted and made miserable and made small, but the bigger, more courageous version of that, which really does seem to be linked with it hand in hand, is the sort of really compassionate and really outward facing desire for what you make to just be wonderful for the person. Because it's not for the audience, for the people who see your art, because it is indeed not a small or miserable thing to have people look at something and think it's good and think it's great, right? We've become accustomed to it, and so that leaves room for us to view it through a more negative lens. But at its core, it has to be a sort of transcendental existential positive, right? It should be utterly fucking impossible. It's amazing that it can happen. It's just, we kind of need to like turn ourselves around and reorient and put it back in that place. Again, what I think is probably its proper place.
Shit.
So do you mean that, you know, there is a sort of compassion in, hey, I made this thing and it kind of makes me feel good that it makes you feel good, and we're going to share this experience, and it elevates me, so if it elevates you, cool, and that is its own reward.
Yes, that's
okay.
it. I identify that as a form of compassion. Yeah.
So I guess I've framed that whole thing a bit weirdly, I guess, and it's that if I start a piece, let's say for somebody I know, and I know that they like cats, if I throw a cat in there, it'll delight them, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, then I feel like what I'm doing is almost simping for making people feel pleased. Like, I'm a people pleaser. I need to figure out what everyone likes and put that in there, all the while silencing anything that I might enjoy, for the sake of making sure everyone else is accommodated.
What if you, before starting a piece, like really, I mean, I'm sure you do this already, but just really evaluate what is it that you innately enjoy, and like even just verbally writing those kinds of things down without any outside pressure.
I was actually making a chart of that yesterday, and what that looks like in a visual, and it's as though there's a hallway, and I'm at one far end, the dead end of the hallway is where I am, and it's dark here. Here's where I've hidden everything that's about me because of, you know, fear of vulnerability, and at the very opposite end is the door to the external world. This is where I curate and say, okay, what is the world like? What is acceptable in the eyes of you know, the gods, if you will. And in this case, it's like, you know, social media, blah, blah, blah. And so I feel like I've put aside anything that's me, and I don't know what that is. It's all in this like blind spot. And sure, I like drawing fantasy, elf girls, as you all know, blah, blah, blah.
You do?
But I've not let myself figure out what I genuinely like, at the same time with any kind of willingness to share that, because it's like, if I do that, then I've opened the gates of potential rejection, or saying, oh, that's what you like, or any kind of you know, scrutiny or whatever. So I'm playing it safe. And so I guess the answer, one step forward, is the willingness to not play it safe.
I think, okay, so also I just want to say hi to Ryan, because he's been in this chat and we haven't let him speak.
Sorry,
I joined like mid conversation. I didn't.
Ryan.
That's
I
all right,
miss
buddy.
you,
What's
dude.
up?
I miss you too, dude.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting alone in my room all the time, and I'm just.
Yo, come back.
That's life now.
Hey, yeah, true. Honestly, I mean, look.
We're looking.
No,
Do you have anything to say?
I think it's interesting. It's an interesting point that you talked about. I mean, I feel like I've been feeling that same thing when I streamed sometimes too. Just like, am I like when I'm drawing something? Am I really thinking about like just what I'm drawing and like doing what I'm doing without the chat being there, or are they influencing me?
Right.
But I just want to add to this.
That they... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just, again, like, I think we're thinking about art in too much of an idealistic kind of way, which is, again, where you wouldn't have even started drawing pictures, or maybe you would have to some degree, but like the perpetual drawing of pictures wouldn't have lasted without a dialogue between the viewer and the artist. Like, it is a form of communication. Like and I'm just relating it to music because that's just how my brain works. But like, people make sounds as a form of communicating with one another. People write words on a page as a form of communication. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think there's a degree to which you want to not do that. Like, for example, I don't know, you wouldn't want to write, I don't know, music that's way too, like, you wouldn't want to just completely imitate some other artist just because they're having success, right? That's not, but you can still allow there to be this fluid conversation between you and the audience without it being something immoral, right? Or like, it's almost just a different perception on the same idea, and maybe it's just changing your view of the idea that you're of what you're experiencing. Sorry, my brain stopped working.
No, it's totally fine.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Maybe.
Give me permission, please. I need validation.
Okay, yes. Okay, there we go.
I think that there is I think some part of this is fully mental, and then there's another part that is a small practical switch, which to me looks like having some moment where you just kind of double down and really do the stuff that you want to do, right? No one can really tell anyone else what that really is, but in my small personal experience with this, I learned a lot from Med and watching Med go through all of these things before I did, right? Med has had a YouTube channel for a long time. Med has had an online presence for a long time. I was always like 2 steps behind him and sort of learning from him as he did those things. And one of the things that I learned from having conversations with Med about this stuff was that I wanted to try to avoid what I saw was sort of conditioning some of that. So when I launched my YouTube channel, I was like, it's just going to be the weirdest, most inaccessible, unappealing thing that I want to do, right? And what that did for me was that growth is not as fast as it maybe would be if I did a bunch of other stuff that I kind of know would work, but because it was just always my weird bullshit from day one, every little bit of audience that I get only reinforces my desire to remain personal, right? It sort of has the opposite effect, and I love my YouTube for it. It seems that the weirder a true thing I believe I say, the more I get great emails, I get super great engagement. I've made friends, I have really interesting conversations with people. I mean, Mike, I never would have imagined that someone from my YouTube would recommend me a book and then I'd read it, that it just seems so, it's so much stuff that I thought was highly unlikely, right? So I have no one to thank but you, Med, for that, right? For you sort of blazed the trail and you put up all these markers for watch out for this stuff. And, I have a lot of other things to overcome in that road instead. But I do think some practical, just like doing it. And no one knows what you have inside, Med, besides you, right? But doing it. And it may require some, it seems for most people, I mean, Ahmed and I are both students of dramatic structure and like how stories really kind of play out in our lives, right? So it seems likely that what will condition that a lot of the time is some event, some life event. And that can be kind of hard to hear, I think, for a lot of people, because it's like, oh, are you saying that my motivation is not completely controlled by me? My motivation is controlled by the complete picture of my life? Yeah, fucking surprise. Yeah, that's how life works. Of course, that's how it works. Things need to happen. Things need to change your mind. Unbelievable things need to happen to you that turn you into a different person, right? Good or bad. So I think that that's probably on the table for you and for everybody. And that will probably condition some sort of change. And really your biggest responsibility, if there is one, is to like keep your eyes open for that. You get what I'm saying?
All right, that makes sense. So I guess what you're saying is there are a lot of variables that happen in the universe, especially on a personal level. And obviously, when a big change happens in your life, that will affect your actions. However, if I stay inside my whole life and don't really allow for things to happen, or connections to be made, or like you mentioned, someone mentioning in a book that you eventually read on YouTube or something, and like huge events, whether it's finding a life partner or the loss of a personal member of the family or something. I'm just thinking out loud. Interesting insight though. Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not, and all of that really is an invitation to, as you're going through all of this, all of that becomes an invitation to not be hard on yourself while you do it, right? Because it really reveals that a lot of this stuff is deeply impersonal. You know, it's like, it's not entirely moved by you. You're not Sisyphus sort of rolling this rock completely of your own will and destiny, right? There's all of these other factors that really do kind of take it out of your hands. So you are free to put in all of this Herculean effort, but you don't need to be hard on yourself as you do it.
I've certainly, you've seen me suffer in the past, being going through the swamp of self-doubt and all that, and I've definitely learned more self-compassion in the past year, of like letting myself off the hook and not being so angry that I'm not figuring everything out immediately. So it's been totally great. I'm just piecing, like I feel like I'm just in a place where I'm rearranging parts of the equation and trying to understand them as they come. So I'm in a pretty good place for the most part. I'm just curious, just, you know, not to make this whole stream about me, but
I'm enjoying it. I just get to listen. So keep going.
It's just talking out loud thing. And sometimes I wish that I was just dumb and I could just make pretty pictures and not think about anything.
Hey everyone, this video is a clip taken from one of my live streams. My current streaming schedule is going to be Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, I'll be doing either character design or animation. The two notable days of the week are going to be Wednesday and Friday. Wednesdays are going to be a group drawing session with channel members. I'll make a canvas on Magma Studio so we can all sketch together on the same canvas. And on Fridays, we'll have the audience poll to decide what we're going to draw, and I'll be having a guest each week. All of the full-length videos will be available to anyone who signs up using the Join feature next to the subscribe button on any YouTube video of mine. Members who sign up will not only get access to the VODs, but they'll also be able to draw along with me live. To access your member perks, just go to my channel page and head to the Community tab. There you'll see all the uploads of the VODs, as well as the links to the Magma Studio canvases that we'll be using for our group drawing sessions every Wednesday. Thanks so much, and I hope to catch you in the live streams.